Gen Z is the worst generation of all time, is something that a really weird sort of person would say. To think that we can objectively judge generations and which ones are better than others seems pretty misguided to me. Hi everyone, my name is Andre and I was born in 2001, which makes me a part of the illustrious Generation Z. American culture puts a strong emphasis on these generational divides, with talks about millennials and boomers and the differences between them. Naturally, Gen Z is now the talk of the town, being the young, hip ones that every brand wants to market to. In recent years, we started seeing news stories about people like Billie Eilish, who was the first person born in the 21st century to have a #1 song, or Maxwell Frost, who's the first member of Gen Z to be elected to Congress. I really wanted to talk about some Gen Z experiences that I feel are defining from people my age and that set us apart from people that came before or after us. This isn't really based on any sort of formal research, but rather just my own personal experiences and anecdotes that I've heard from friends and seen on the internet. Before we keep going, I wanted to ask, what do you think is a core part of the Gen Z experience? And make sure to include whether or not you yourself are actually part of Gen Z. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons along with the bell because it really does help a smaller channel like myself get noticed. I don't want to start off too morbid, but I do want to acknowledge a couple of elephants in the room that set Gen Z apart. While I was alive on September 11th, I have no recollection of it, and I've always lived in a post 9/11 world. The notion of a world without a TSA or without a war on terror is something completely foreign to me and others of my generation. In addition to this, of course, there's the Great Recession and the housing crisis where countless families lost their homes. 9/11 and the Great Recession are two things that millennials had to go through and experience in a very traumatic way while they were coming to age, but have always just been kind of normal for Gen Z. Millennials who grew up in the 90s, a very romanticized time of Saturday morning cartoons and Bill Clinton, were in for a rude awakening when they suddenly saw thousands of people die tragically on live television and were unable to get high paying jobs after going to college because of the recession. While this is a uniquely millennial experience, I would argue that Gen Z went through something very similar with the coronavirus pandemic, where many struggled to find jobs and younger Gen Z kids had to experience online school. The contrast between these experiences is displayed really well in the difference of reaction from said generation. There's a meme that I quite like that illustrates this very well. It has a very distraught image of a millennial that reads, "Nothing in life matters," next to a picture of a Zoomer with a colorful background that says, "Nothing in life matters." While this is quite cheesy, I do feel that it truly does reflect a difference between their attitudes. This is also in large part due to the other elephant in the room, which is the internet. I doubt many would object to me saying that the creation of the internet is the single biggest technological innovation of recent times and the biggest factor influencing Gen Z culture. While millennials are certainly very technologically adept, Gen Z is the first generation to not remember a time before widespread internet use or smartphones. Facebook, for example, was founded when I was just 2 years old. I remember always having some sort of computer at home or in the classroom, so I was never really exposed to anything pre digital. The experience of growing up with the entire world in your fingertips is a really interesting one when you realize you're part of the first group of people that are exposed to that. This also leads to a more politically conscious group of young people. I remember Donald Trump announcing his first presidential campaign on that fateful escalator around the time of my 14th birthday and just being told how ridiculous it all was on social media. I had a vague understanding of who Donald Trump was. I'm pretty sure I only knew him from his original Epic Rap Battles of History portrayal, which predates his political career and is very different from the portrayals that you'll see of him there today. The memification of Trump really piqued my interest in politics, which I literally paid no attention to whatsoever before that. Of course, I was only 14 and I didn't really know what I was talking about, but that didn't stop me from sharing political hot takes on social media, which I'm sure many others of my age group also did. I believe that most people my age had their political awakening because of Donald Trump, whether it was to support him or to oppose him. I stand here today as someone who really loves history and politics and who is majoring in political science, which I'm not sure is a path I would have taken if it hadn't been for my generational experience. Gen Z is known for being very liberal, even though that's not something that's particularly unique for a youth of any given time. This includes progressive notions on things like sexuality, immigration, and the economy. Obviously, this isn't everyone. I've definitely encountered my fair share of conservative people that are my age, but for the most part, yeah, Gen Z is pretty liberal. I remember 2012 as the year that the internet became a big part of my life. I had just moved to Brazil and I was really missing the US, so the internet became a way for me to stay in touch with American culture. I started playing Minecraft and watching way too much YouTube, which everyone my age definitely did at least at some point. I remember sitting down and watching the Gangnam Style views go up until it hit 1 billion. I remember using those stupid little troll faces everyone was obsessed with and bottom text. There's a certain nostalgia that people I've encountered at least have for that era where we kind of regard it as our sort of internet awakening. I would argue that widespread internet use is incredibly empowering, but I think it's important to remember that we're also the lab rats in this experiment. I have a feeling that we're going to reckon with the effects of social media and instant gratification for the rest of our lives. While I'm sure that we talk about mental health more today because it's much less socially taboo and there are much greater resources for it now, I would argue that social media is still a pretty big contributor to people's mental health problems, especially when it comes to my own age group. I do have hope that we're learning to balance the wonderful positives that come with the digital age with its unfortunate side effects. Every generation, there's talks about how the youth is in crisis, and Gen Z is definitely still subject to that. Despite being the most educated generation ever, we have pretty negative job prospects, and we're coming of age during a time of economic downturn, much like millennials did before us. I think COVID in particular shook up any sort of conventional notions that we had about work as we watched everything just come to a standstill. You can't be on the internet today without hearing that young men are in crisis. Particularly after the rise of grifters like Andrew Tate and Liver King, who claim to have all the answers but are really just snake oil salesmen that are trying to profit off of people's insecurities. There's obviously a lot of struggles that young women are dealing with as well, such as body image issues, but I'm not going to speak about that in this video because it's not my own personal experience, and I feel like there are people much better equipped to have that conversation than me. As a young man myself, I've had countless run ins with the toxic sort of hustle culture that makes people feel like they're not working hard enough. Like, you always have to be working, and you always have to have a side hustle, and you always have to be a millionaire by the time you're 20, and if you're not, then you're a complete failure and it's too late for you. I had already written this script, but yesterday I saw this video on my Twitter feed that was so ridiculous that I have to show it to you.
If you're a guy in your 20s and you don't have a Lamborghini, you should actually sit down and have like a serious discussion with yourself as to why you don't have a Lambo.
Yep.
Because I realize now that it's so incredibly easy and there's so much money out there, and 200 grand relative to what is out there in circulation and what you can grab, especially now with AI tools that you can leverage like never before, 200 grand is chump change.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. What are we telling people? Like, that is so ridiculous. I genuinely, like, this part of the video isn't even scripted. I'm just, like, at a loss for words because this is how we talk to our young men. Like, this is the messages that we're telling them. This is not healthy. Anyway, I'm gonna get back to the script now. Thanks for watching. The marketing in particular towards young men is very interesting.
Here in my garage, just bought this new Lamborghini here. It's fun to drive up here in the Hollywood Hills. But you know what I like a lot more than materialistic things? Knowledge. In fact, I'm a lot more proud of these 7 new bookshelves that I had to get installed to hold 2,000 new books that I bought.
All of it is like, hey you, break free of the shackles and come do this one specific thing that'll make you rich. By the way, that thing that'll make you rich directly benefits me, and don't bother asking why it's shaped like a pyramid. I'm gonna turn this into an ASMR channel. Start doing mukbangs. You can probably tell from my background, but I love rap music more than almost anything on this planet. It's truly one of my greatest passions, and it's something that I really want to figure out how to discuss in a way that's cohesive with the rest of this channel. The popularity of rap music with Gen Z also speaks to this hustle culture narrative that we've been talking about. Hip hop is composed of hundreds of rags to riches stories where young men work hard and achieve their greatest dreams, usually in their early 20s. That's a beautiful thing, and I'm happy for them. But this sort of narrative does inadvertently make other people feel bad about themselves in comparison sometimes. This sort of idea of meritocracy, like, I worked hard and I deserve to be here because I worked harder than you. And then you think, wow, did I actually not work hard enough? Like, did they work so much harder than me that they deserve to be a millionaire while I'm working at Publix? Shout out Publix. And it's not just rap music, it's influencer culture in general. I've talked about Jake Paul on the past in this channel, and it's the same sort of narrative. And that's not to say don't work hard. I like to think that I work pretty hard on this channel. If you're passionate about something, or even just passionate about making money, go for it. Do your thing. I hope that it makes you happy. What I am saying is that having nothing but 20 something millionaires pervading your culture and having marketing that blames you and makes it a personal failure of yours for not being that thing is pretty harmful. The pressure that we put on young men to succeed, combined with coming of age in a bad economy, will lead people to looking for answers in a lot of the wrong places. Alleged sex trafficker. He definitely did it. And this isn't to negate the agency or personal responsibility of people that fall down those really weird ideological rabbit holes, but it's just pointing out the root cause and talking about it so that we might find a way to prevent that. Back on the subject of Gen Z as a whole, it's easier now to make something than ever before, but it's also harder to get noticed. The marketplace is very crowded, and if you want to stand out, then you better make a splash. Trust me, I know I've been trying. Everyone my age has thought of making a YouTube channel. I promise you, everyone, at least once, the thought has definitely crossed your mind. And that's okay. It's a pretty fun thing. I've wanted to make a YouTube channel since I was 11 years old, but I had a lot of different interests and I never knew which one I wanted to talk about. So now I'm here and just talking about all of them. Hope you guys like it. Gen Z threw away the middleman and the institutions. We get our content directly from our creators and we can find our own niche little subcultures for whatever interest we might have. I can look at video essays about how amazing Kendrick Lamar's last album was and how Kanye is throwing away the greatest hip hop career of all time just to be a horrible anti Semite, and then jump over and look at the walkability of cities and learn about city planning, and then learn about history and presidents and all the stuff that I'm passionate about. What an age to be alive. Gen Z, we are living. Now more than ever, cultural power is in the hands of the people, and I couldn't be happier about that. I mostly work in digital marketing, and I was talking to a boss that I had at the time about my YouTube channel, and they said, "Oh, yeah, that looks great on a resume." And I remember thinking, YouTube isn't the resume work. It's not the portfolio. It's not the side thing. This job is the side thing for me to just make some cash. YouTube is my passion. It's something that belongs to me, and it's the thing that I want to work on and pursue. And that's a very Gen Z way of thinking. I want to leave you with the question, what do you think Gen Z can do to balance the benefits and the problems with the internet? I by no means have any of the answers, and I've always stated that on this channel, what I talk about is more so about raising questions and discussing problems that we have. If you enjoyed this video, please do consider leaving a like and subscribing because it really, really, really makes a difference in the algorithm. If you're feeling extra generous today, I have a PayPal link down below where you can support my channel. By no means do you have to, but any donations are appreciated. It would help a lot. With that, I now set you free. If you watched the entire video, thank you. I appreciate it. I worked very hard. Now you never have to see me drink coffee again.